a combination of,
Oh. Good morning and welcome to the TxVSN Online Learning Conference. We're glad you could join us for this session, Transformative and Strategic Online Professional Development, what you need to know to keep your online instructors engaged, presented by Lori Fontenot. This session will run until 10 o'clock a.m. Central. I'm your host, Alicia Rackers. Our facilitator is Jean Dixie. Our captionist is Adrienne Gutierrez. To view the captions, open to the Window tab at the upper left and select Show Closed Captioning, or use Hotkey Control F8. Sign language interpretation is provided by Justin of Hired Hands. Please notice the participant window to the left of your screen. Here you'll find the buttons to raise your hand, respond to polling, and use emoticons. The chat window is where you can ask questions during the presentation. Please note that moderators will be able to view all chat comments. Finally, the talk button in the upper left section of your screen can be used if you have a microphone and there is an opportunity to use it during the presentation. It will be blue when your microphone is live. And now I'm going to hand it over to our presenter, Lori.
Thank you, Alicia, for that great introduction, and welcome to Transformative and Strategic Online Professional Development, what you need to know to keep your online instructors engaged. And as I said, as Alicia announced, I'm Lori Fontenot. I'm the Senior Instructional Designer here at Region 4, and I am the one that is in red here. And this is my colleagues here at Region 4. And just to let you know a little bit about us, together we have over 20 years of experience in designing quality online learning experiences for teachers. A little more about myself, I develop online learning objects in both the corporate and education sectors, and my primary focus has been, for the most of my career, on adult learners. But I want to know a little bit more about you. Let's take a minute in the chat and introduce yourself. Tell me who you are and where you're from and what role you play in your organization. Hi, Joanne. Crystal, I see. Hello, Rachel. Hi, Molly. You work with Proximity Learning, and you teach Chinese. Hi, Jean Dixie. Hi, Kim. And I know Alicia Backer. Hi, Catherine. And James. Or Memphis, okay. Well, I hope I got everyone. Thank you for providing that information to me. I always like to get to know who's in my session. And so, how do we transform our online professional development so that our teachers are moving away from not liking professional development to loving it? And so how do we create our PDs so that our teachers are excited and engaged? And in fact, how do we get them to the point where we're actually looking forward to their professional development? But before we get into that, let's look at a recent study that polled teacher satisfaction levels of their current PD offerings. This particular study is called Teachers Know Best, Teachers' Views on Professional Development, and it was conducted by the Boston Consulting Group, and it was funded by Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. It was done in 2014. And what they did is they rated the teachers' overall satisfaction with PD, and as you can see, less than 29% indicated that they were satisfied. So that's 71% not satisfied with their current professional development format. So what is that telling us? It's telling us that we're not meeting teachers' needs. And so, I'm sure while most of the time we're providing great information, but are we truly meeting the real objectives? And we think about our objectives like this, whether it's to introduce a new tool or strategy, or to even to inspire and inform our teachers. But to get them to liking their PD, we need to explore a couple of things. And so the number one thing that we need to explore is, what do our instructors want out of professional development? What's important to them? We need to understand that first before we even dive into developing the online professional development. So think about your last professional development. What did you like about it? Use your whiteboard tools here and just write on the screen, tell me what you liked about it. What happened in the course?
Lori, we have a question in the chat box from Marla on the study that you showed, was it for K through 12 teachers or higher education?
These are actually K through 12 teachers. So some people are saying it was relevant, it gave me information I could use immediately. I love finding tech that I could use today. It was applicable. Yes, I could use the information in the classroom. Examples were given and resources. I like getting sample lessons and activities. So these are all things that you want to keep in mind. But the flip side to that is, let's think about the professional development that you attended and that you hated it. It just was a waste of your time. So using the same whiteboard tools, tell me, what did you hate about it? Didn't pertain to you, not relevant, not directed to my subject area or grade, nothing new. Wasn't allowed by your district, yeah. So tell me more about that one too, the person who wrote not allowed by your district. What happened there?
That was actually me, Joanne. When I was in the classroom, I'd go to all these great trainings, but the district didn't allow that particular methodology to be used. So you had this great toolbox, but you couldn't use it.
Oh, wow. Okay. Right. So all of those things that you're mentioning are things that, we need to consider when you develop your professional development. So, and those are all the things that teachers want out of their professional development. Some of the suggestions that came out of the study are the very same things that you've mentioned too. And so, they're looking for meaningful information, something they could use in the classroom immediately. The other thing that came out of it was time to practice, and the other was engaging delivery. And then one of the things that I thought was most significant was this ongoing support and opportunities for follow-up. So let's talk about what it means to have meaningful professional development. Well, I came across this article 10 Things Teachers Want in Professional Development by Cheryl Beach. What teachers want to be relevant, and what she said in the article, is that they want professional development to give them techniques and strategies that will help guide students learning effectively, that will help them guide them. The other things are they want the topic of professional development given to them, giving them strategies and skills to keep the students engaged. So again, a lot of the same things that you're mentioning are the same things that came out of a lot of these studies. Other things, using the classroom, online environment immediately. Teachers want to be able to use those strategies and techniques right away. When I think about teacher schedules and what they have to do, it's tough. And so providing PD that allows them to use strategies and tools right away, it's worth its weight in gold. I recently did a training on how to use Nearpod in the classroom. And what Nearpod is an interactive presentation tool that allows teachers to engage their students with interactive lessons. So instead of spending most of the time showing participants on the point and click, like how to use the tool, I had them build their Nearpod presentation with a lesson that they could use immediately. So while the overall objective of the session was to teach them how to use the tool, the participants actually walked away with the lesson presentation to use in their classroom immediately. When we talk about time to practice, I think this is so critical. You have to allow your instructors time to practice. So if you're offering, say, a synchronous online session, a great way is to give them permission to present so that they can practice the skill during the session. And this allows you to give immediate feedback. If you're, doing an asynchronous environment, you can place your participants in work groups with the objective of allowing your teachers to practice with their peers. So giving them time to practice is critical when you're developing your online professional development. The other thing, too, is engaging delivery. I can't tell you the number of online courses I've taken where it was just the same repeated action each time. It was I read, I responded to a question. I read some more, and I responded to another question. So making it engaging is very important. And I attended a session just the other day, a webinar on UDL in the cloud, and they talked about this very thing. And one of the ways they suggested was that in your online environment, it is very important to have a strong instructor presence because people want to connect with you and make sure that they have some type of way to socialize with you and get to know you and personalize the actual training. The other thing, too, is that ongoing support and opportunities to follow. How can you do this in your online environment? Well, it can be as easy as sending an email asking how things are going. Maybe you introduced a new tool, maybe you introduced a new strategy. Well, send an email to your instructors and ask, hey, how's it going for you? Did it work for you? And if it's something that's not working, hold staff meetings. You can hold online staff meetings to discuss, how could we make it work? Work out the challenges and have an opportunity to share their experiences. Some other considerations for developing your online learning. The thing I think is critical is that you really need to understand adult learning theory. And so that brings us to the difference between andragogy versus pedagogy. And so what we know about adult learning is that adults come to us with tons of experience. And the one way that they learn is that they're pulling from their life experiences and are connecting the learning to their own knowledge base versus pedagogy where, we are, the instructor, are building the knowledge base and we are showing them how to connect those experiences. I recommend, if you want to learn more about this subject, is to research on Malcolm Knowles. He's a theorist on adult learning, and he can help, as you read through his theory, help you make those connections for developing your online professional development in your teachers. The other thing about adults, because we come with so much experience, is that they love to share their own experience, and they love to talk about their experiences. So in your professional development, you might want to include those opportunities to allow your teachers to share their own experiences. The other thing, too, is that adults, when they're learning, they're very goal-oriented. And so, it may be that they're looking for something like, I want to be able to engage my students more, whether they're working in the K-12 environment or they're working at a college level. And so, some of the things we'll do is that we'll research on our own. Not only are we pulling from our own experiences, but we're taking knowledge that's out there and thinking about how we can implement in that. So when you develop your professional development for your teachers, you want to make sure that you provide an opportunity, whether it's, creating an opportunity for them to problem solve. And so, in andragogy, remember that your adult learners are goal-oriented, whereas in pedagogy, they're just accepting the instruction. We're just giving it to them. We're also self-initiated. When we talk about your professional development for being like a problem-centered, you want to move away from it being content-centered, but more problem-centered. And so, maybe it's solving the problem, and when we do that, we're making that professional development relevant to them. And, when it's relevant, then it has an impact in your life. And then if it's your objective to, create a change or introduce a new strategy, making it a problem-centered one where the adult learners can have a say in it will help them in their course, throughout the course things. It makes them more motivated to learn. So some other instructional things, other things that I think are important to consider are we have to use instructional strategies that work. So how do we tie in this whole adult learning theory? How do we tie in what teachers want out of their learning? Where some strategies that really work for the adult learners is that, one, you want to encourage reflection, and I'll get into more about that. But, again, we know that adults want to draw upon their own experience, that they're goal-oriented, and really their motivation for learning is internal. And so we want to make sure that we provide those opportunities for them that encourage reflection. We want to provide opportunities for them to have social interaction with their peers so that they can discuss their experiences or, maybe hash out some of the issues that they're experiencing in their own classroom and work together with that. Hands-on activities. I mentioned the professional development I did on Nearpod. It was a hands-on activity. It was something that they can use right away. And in the session, I gave them a choice. I gave them the choice that, listen, I have some lessons that you can use of mine to practice this new skill using the Nearpod presentation, or let's take something, one of your lessons that you currently use in your classroom, and let's create your presentation using the Nearpod tool. So it was something they could use right away in their online course. And then again, make it real life context. Maybe it's scenarios. I talked about one of the things we could do for real life context to make it real life and relevant is really understanding what your teachers want out of their professional development. So what could that look like? How could we encourage reflection? One way to do that is have participants respond to reflective questions using online journals. But you want to make sure that those reflection questions allow participants to draw upon their own experience. So maybe that is, the topic of how do I engage my students? Put it out there. Put in their reflection journal, ask them, what are some of the strategies that you've used in the past? Did it work? And what can you do to improve upon it? Have them reflect and solve their, make it a problem-solving session when they're responding to their reflective question. Excuse me. To create social interactions, a lot of the learning management systems allow participants to work in groups, or you can do a group project. So this allows your participants to collaborate and also produce a product or solve a problem. So again, we're going back to that adult learning theory about, and also to what teachers want in developing their professional development. And certainly, I talked about the hands-on activities. I've mentioned a couple that I've done in terms of the Nearpod presentation, but have the participants build their own lesson using a new online tool, or have them develop a whole lesson plan that's something that they can use and it's tangible and use right away in their classroom. Make that part of your professional development. And real-life context. Provide a real-life scenario and ask participants to come up with solutions. Present content or challenges that are relevant to your instructors. How can you do that? You can survey them. Ask them ahead of time, what is it that you want in your professional development? Maybe some of your teachers are struggling with, keeping their students engaged or getting students to respond. Have them create that real-life content for them to solve that issue and come up with a strategy to address whatever challenges they like to overcome. So, I want to put it out there too, besides the ones that I've mentioned, what are some instructional strategies that have worked for you? Use the chat to kind of put some out there for me and let me know. Using group discussion forums with the online course is so useful and so much fun. Thank you, Alicia. It's a relatively easy thing for the instructors to set up and allow for the collaboration that is missing in traditional PD. That's so true. And I love how sometimes in those discussion forums, Alicia, how it just expands and it just builds this huge knowledge base for other instructors who perhaps may have not thought of using a different strategy. It allows them to gain a new skill in those discussions, and it comes from their peers. Let's see. So using the LMS tools to allow students to collaborate on research, absolutely. Jean, I love that. Mixing faculty from different schools, not always just training, but doing their own building. Yep, those are the same concepts we're talking about in this session. Using small breakout rooms, yep. In Blackboard Collaborate, that's right. That's a great tool. It allows them to make connections, get points, and share with their colleagues. Absolutely. And Catherine, putting content levels to brainstorm. Yep, it's that whole problem solving, Catherine. Excellent. Yep, and it's very helpful from your content peers from other schools. Exactly. And sharing information and strategies with other teachers. Yeah, thank you so much for providing what you're currently doing in your courses today. The other thing that I think is so critical when you are developing your professional development is that you're keeping accessibility in mind. And I love this quote from Retrofitting Accessibility. It was an article, and I'll read it. It says, "The failure to address issues of accessibility for persons with physical, sensory, and cognitive disabilities ultimately threatens to segregate people with disability as the permanent second-class citizens of the information age." when I read that, I just went, whoa. We have to build with accessibility in mind. And, you know, I want to tell you the story. When I worked for a mortgage company several years ago, I had to develop this course in compliance. And so I built this course. At the time I was using an online course. At the time I was using Articulate Studio to develop this course that we were placing online. The course was meant to be self-paced. And I was pretty happy with myself with the course. And then I got the call. I received a call from our top salesperson, by the way, who informed me that she was hearing impaired, and because the self-paced course was, while it provided visual, it also had audio. And at the time, when I built this, I didn't put in closed captioning. I did have a transcript, but when I read this quote, it made me think about that moment that, you know, why should our top salesperson have to wait for me to provide her an additional piece of information after everyone else has had it? And so when you develop your professional development, I think the key thing to do is that you want to build with accessibility in mind, and you want to make it part of your development design. Do it in the beginning. Know your software capabilities. You know, in Articulate Studio, it wasn't something that was built in, and there are some that are, but you really have to, I got to preach it, Lori, you really have to build those pieces in manually. And so there are ways to do it. Currently, in the position I'm in, we use Articulate storylines, and we've learned how to create those pieces in there so that we have, we're meeting those accessibility guidelines to, you know, so that we're reaching all learners. And, excuse me, with the storyline template, while it will provide a transcript tab that will display your transcript, that's just not quite enough. We have to be able to reach everyone. What you can do, and some of the things that we're learning here too, is that we started creating templates so that accessibility was already built into them. And so when our developers go to create the courses, they're already putting those pieces at the very beginning so that we're not retrofitting or we're not having to go back and do it. Create checklists so that they're meeting them. And I will tell you, you know, we're still learning about how we can meet all learners. And so my whole team here, my colleagues and I, we're taking the TxVSN training on accessibility. I think that opens up tomorrow. Is that right, Joanne? But leverage the training that's out there. You know, TxVSN offers at no cost training on accessibility. And so again, make it part of your development design. It's in the beginning. Know your software capabilities, and create templates and checklists for your developers so that it's already at the beginning. You're not having the retrofit, and you're building as you're going. You're not having to use having to go back and fix things. You know, I go back to that quote, and I'm just going to go back to that slide again. You know, not just because it's the law, but it's because it's the right thing to do. All learners should have access to learning, and it's very important. And as you can see, I'm pretty passionate about it. After my one experience, I was devastated that I received that call, because I thought, wow, here's my top salesperson, and I didn't provide something to her right at the time that I was providing learning for everyone else. So build with accessibility in mind, and you know, so to make your PDs transformative and strategic online professional development, the things you want to do is know what teachers want out of your professional development. Keep in mind how adults learn best. Malcolm Knowles is a great theorist on adult learning. You know, research him, find out everything that he's saying so that you can make those connections. Again, survey your teachers, know what they want. A lot of times we provide great content, but it's not something they can use, and so we really want to make sure that we're making the best use of our time in terms of providing the professional development, but more importantly, the best use of our teachers' time. And incorporate online instructional strategies that work for adults. You know, do the group discussions, do the problem-centered type professional development. And lastly, but certainly not least, build with accessibility in mind. So that completes my presentation. I'm open for questions. What questions do you have for me?
Good morning. This is Jean. I just wanted to ask you about your Nearpod training. Did you find that the teachers already knew how to use it? I know you said you didn't spend a lot of time going over the clicks and the tool because you wanted to get to the product. But did the teachers know how to use it already?
You know, I had, you know, two types of learners in there. I had some that aren't really comfortable with using new technology, and then I had those that were pretty much could figure it out on their own. So in terms of working with the learners who were not comfortable, I started it off with, let's take a lesson plan that you already know. And then I showed them some point and click, but for the most part, I had them in the technology working with it. And we just worked through some of those stumbling blocks for those learners who were a little less comfortable with the Nearpod presentation. But at the very end, they created their Nearpod presentation, and I also gave them opportunities to practice with their peers, so that when it came time to facilitating their Nearpod presentation in their course, that they were ready for it. You know, we showed them how it works. They built their own lesson, and then they were able to implement it right away into their course.
Yeah, that's great. Practice with your peers. Even though I just said it's good to work with people in another building, but if you can run to your neighbor real quick and say, oh my gosh, how did this go again? Then that's nice too. But
absolutely. And then it provides just great, you know, we talked about that, you know, what teachers want in terms of support and, you know, that ongoing support of the training that they've just received. And so that's another method of having teachers practice and then also providing the support that they need. I see one question in there. Do you use personal learning networks? You most certainly can. Having the personal learning networks, people involved in helping teachers in their learning, absolutely. You know, that network provides an opportunity for them to collaborate and share and have discussion and problem solve. Are there any other questions? In your experience when beginning training and planning for group collaboration? I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask the question with the mic, but I'll turn my mic off.
Okay, so I was reading the question. This is from you, Alicia. When beginning training and planning for group collaboration, is it better for the instructors to set up groups or have them self-select? I think you can do either way, and it depends on you know, if you're doing a webinar, it may be better to just randomly select the groups together. Or if you're in a situation where this is ongoing, then you could have them self-select. Maybe it's putting groups with the common, you know, who work on a common curriculum. And sometimes it's good to cross-pollinate too. You know, you want them to learn from other people. So maybe if you're mixing science with your RLA folks, that's always helpful as well.
Hi, this is Rachel Knipe. I just had a quick question. Have you ever found it helpful to have teachers or the learners in the professional development session choose, you know, break the session into two options, one for beginners or one for, you know, people who are more advanced in their skill level? Our current teachers, we have two very defined groups. People who are very intuitive, quick to learn, very comfortable with technology, and the others need a lot more of the steps to be broken down, which frustrates those who are further along, and vice versa. So have you ever, you know, kind of, would you advise breaking them into groups and allowing them to pick which session they'd like to go to for some relevant topics?
I think you could do it either way. It would be in your course description and how, you know, what you describe so that your advanced learners understand that this could be a beginning course. But if it's not possible for you to break them up into sessions, in your build, I would recommend that you provide choices within your professional development, so that maybe one of the projects or problem solving would require more advanced skill levels, and then the other problem would maybe focus on more of the beginner skill levels. And so, you know, it's breakout sessions, and you're clearly labeling the types of breakout sessions. I think I wouldn't kind of say, okay, this is for beginners and this is for more advanced people. I would just present my problem in a way with a description of some of the things that you're going to cover. Yes, you're welcome, Rachel. Okay, it looks like, you know, that's it. I'm going to put my contact information in the chat. If you have any questions after this training, then or session, you can certainly contact me anytime. I'm happy to help. If you have questions about how to set up templates or even checklists for if you have someone other than yourself developing, or even for yourself to, you know, just checkpoints, please don't hesitate to contact me. I am happy to share and happy to help. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Lori, and it's been really a pleasure listening to you. I know that many of us have learned a lot more about how to approach professional development and also how to bring this information back to our schools to maybe give some ideas and maybe affect some professional development there. Thank you for attending this session, and thank you to Lori for sharing your expertise.
Thank you.
Yes.
You all have a great day.
To receive your continuing professional education credits for attending this session, fill out the survey posted on the conference homepage, conference.TxVSN.org. Your CPE certificates will be mailed to you within 2 weeks. To access the recording of this session, please visit the Conference tab on the conference homepage and click on View Recorded Sessions. Transcripts of each session will be posted there as well. The next session will be at 10:30 a.m. Central, entitled Ninja Strategies for Teaching Online, what great online educators do differently. Thank you for attending the TxVSN Online Learning Conference. We hope you join us for next year's conference scheduled for June 21st through 23rd, 2017.